Hello and welcome to Rethink Reality. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I know it's been some time in the making to make this combo happen.
You're always exploring such fascinating ideas on a daily basis, and you're always informing your audience. And one that stuck out to me recently was your discussion of the post-reality era. What does a post-reality era mean to you? And when do you think we cross this?
The post-reality era is an era that is individually, or reality is individually determined by each person. And I don't mean perception creates reality, because that is its own kind of philosophical area. I mean that reality may be AI generated in some instances, and people can individually decide if it's real based on how it feels to them. And I like to put in a few examples. So one that's a little bit easier to interpret, maybe your personal AI assistant and agent, which most of us are going to start to have. I think the relationship you have with your smartphone, you will eventually have with a team of AI systems. And if you don't understand the economy, you could ask your personal AI agents, explain what's going on, explain what the Fed chair just said about interest rates. And the AI could generate a reality that may pull in factual information, but it may also be catered and tailored specific to your views already and kind of reinforce this world that you live in. And then you decide if that's stamped as real or not based on your own opinion of it. And then I guess a more polarizing example would be AI relationships. So those are certainly not real to, at this point in time, a lot of people. But to the people experiencing those relationships with an AI generated partner or girlfriend, whomever, it's real to them. And so in the event that, a friend said, I can't come to your birthday, I have, a conversation with my AI partner. Is that a valid excuse? I mean, a lot of us would think, yikes, where are we in this
Mhm.
world? But for some people, these are very real experiences. And so that's stamped as real depending on how you feel about it. And I think it's really different than this kind of post truth world we're in, because at least we share, it's sometimes delusional, often delusional, a reality on social media, but we have kind of a shared idea of what's happening. In post reality era, it's all individual based on the world you see through AI.
So, I mean, on that note, how do I even know you're real? How will you explain that you're not post real, in this post reality era that we're in? What are your, I mean, how are you even thinking of approaching this?
Yeah, what's crazy about that is that there are, for some reason, a lot of people that don't know if I'm real. I have actually made an album of all of the screenshots I've taken of people commenting, but what if she's AI? And this isn't like since this AI post deep fake world. This is like since 2020. And sometimes
Wow.
I'll get DMs, which is hilarious. And they'll do TikTok lives to be like, hey, everybody, I'm alive. And then people are like, only somebody who's AI would have to do a live about not being AI. But anyways, in terms
That's
of,
good.
it gets to the heart of the problem, though. How do we actually prove our humanity in a world where AI can create humanity in a way that seems just as plausible or looks just as real? And that's, I guess, to the bigger point of provenance, and how do we trace and verify what it means to be human in this AI generated world. And there are a lot of different companies that are trying to approach this. So there's Sam Altman's WorldCoin, where you scan your eye, and that validates that you are human, and then that's kind of your stamp of approval in the digital world, that everything this person does, it has that verified stamp that this is coming from a human. So that's one extreme way to look at it. The concept makes sense. The data and all of that, that's a whole other topic. But then there's just also different methods, such as even blockchain, where you can trace a piece of content throughout the internet or throughout a digital environment and understand where it came from. You don't have to say this came from Sinead Bovell based in New York, but this came from a human, and you can follow that through. So there are these different structural changes, but these are really big tasks and undertaking. This is like a different
Yeah.
version of the internet we're thinking of building, or a different version of IDs. But that's kind of the scale of change that we're looking at if we really want to get this right and not kind of lose ourselves to this post truth, post reality potential pending apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to lose myself. Ideally, I find more clarity. On that note of kind of verification of identity through biometrics, did you see like this last week? I forgot which country just started enforcing age verification for social media apps. And within a few hours, humans found a very creative way to circumvent a facial recognition algorithm that detects your age from a photo. Did you see that? The video game assets they did?
I did, and I can't remember where. Was it Australia?
Yeah, I think so. I might need to double check the
Yeah.
location, but they were taking screenshots of a video game avatar that they could change the age of the avatar on their video game screen. And if they take a photo of that with a little bit of motion in their phone, so it's a slightly blurry version of this very hyper real character, they were passing age verification this way. What are what are your thoughts on that?
I know that's human ingenuity is absolutely fascinating. And when we need and want to be creative and to solve a problem, no problem. We can do it instantly, just not always to the most necessary ones. I mean, yeah, anything that's going to be digital is going to, anything that's a purely software digital verification system is going to have this kind of cat mouse game to it. And there's always going to be ways to circumvent it. So it will probably have to be, in the long term, a solution that's built into the hardware of the devices that we use. And it starts from
Wow.
there. So yeah, because if it's anything that involves a password, photo, trust, check off terms and conditions. Yes, I am 16, 18, 24, 49. Everyone's going to get around that. So if we want it to be more structural, it's going to have to look like what is the new version of ID in an age of artificiality?
Yeah, I mean, hearing that, have you played with the Apple Vision Pro by any chance?
I've been in it. I don't have one.
Okay. So you like test it out at a store, I'm guessing?
Hmm.
So if you once you buy one, they have you do an optic ID scan with your eyeball in the device. And then you're the only person who can drive your persona that looks like you. But I know that when I'm talking to somebody else's persona in the Vision Pro, I know they had to do an optic scan in order to be that avatar.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, was Apple and other companies already starting to look at what does verification look like through digital, where it's like the device scans your eye and only you can drive your avatar because it's your eyeball, not mine.
That's exactly true. Information integrity and kind of digital verification in this age is going to have to be at the device level or something as structural as that. And so you're spot on with the example of Apple scanning your eye to make sure that that is you driving the Vision Pro. So what does that look like across most devices?
So is that what shared truth is going to look like? On device biometric verifications, and then you trust the devices that you're talking to?
Perhaps, I mean, the challenge of that is that we don't even know what this new ecosystem is going to look like. We know it's probably not going to include smartphones. We know that there's going to be a lot more audio involved, that there's going to be, yeah, something, a new type of device. We know social media is going to look very different. So we're not going to need to prove ourselves in the way that we do now. So the whole ecosystem is still up for not even debate, but for creation. So it's hard to say what that assembly line of I'm proving a human, but why, for whom, where. The why, for whom, where doesn't exist yet.
So, man, you're spot on. What was that again? The why, for whom, and what? It doesn't exist yet?
The why, for whom, and where doesn't exist yet.
Well, do we get any say? I mean, do you make a device that I trust you from online, and I trust whatever you would try to put together? Could you create a foundation? Is that can individuals be that new trust network?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it could be either like what is the iPhone of the future? And so then is it going to have to look like something of that scale? Or is it something that comes with the AI first devices and a nonprofit or civil society figures out a new ID verification system that's embedded in that level? And it doesn't necessarily have to just be structural on the device. There are other things like blockchain, but it has to be on that scale, I think.
Hmm.
Or else, I mean, we are at the beginning of our journey with artificial intelligence, and these systems are going to get very capable. So it's going to have to be something that has something physical attached to it, which is much harder for an AI system to circumvent or deceive.
It's so wild when you remind us that this is still the early days, because it's like we've seen so much tremendous improvements and upgrades in the last 2.5 years alone. So to think that this is still like very early on is just bizarre, because then that means it's to your point earlier, very unrecognizable what it even looks like a couple of years out from now. So how do you prepare minds to navigate the future that is yet to be imagined?
Yeah, I know it. And I don't think I can understate how early we are. And I like to say it's like the early 90s with the internet to put it into perspective for people, except for if it is 1993 and the internet is just kind of coming of age, everything that happens after it happening in maybe 10 years, not 25. So we're moving faster, but we're still really early. And in terms of how do you prepare people, I mean, the first thing you have to do is help people to challenge people's assumptions about what the future could look like and to show them different mental models. We tend to ground our perspectives about the future in present day capabilities and in present day failure modes. And that when you think about the future through that lens or through the lens of the present, you miss one where the disruption happens, you miss the speed that it's happening at, and you miss the thing that's actually important to pay attention to. So I think that's kind of the place that I start. I mean, that's also more with business leaders and executives who have this kind of linear view of how things are going to evolve, and it's to really kind of shake them out of that progress isn't linear. You cannot predict a breakthrough, but you can predict where a business model will break or will crack if the assumptions that they're betting their entire company on don't hold. So I try to start
Mm,
there. And then to also paint, like, show scenarios of one where things have changed historically that they've been a part of. And it becomes like, oh, yeah, you're right. Things have in the past changed quite astronomically, I imagine, with this new thing. And then paint scenarios of what the future could look like. But nobody can predict it. I mean, not
right.
anybody that I've met, but you can use data to inform likelihoods.
So I love that. So challenge people's assumptions, and you said share the scenarios that like paint new pictures, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was maybe 6 years ago when I gave my first presentation about the end of smartphones, and we're going to
I love
be
that presentation, by the way.
and it was just slow blinks in boardrooms. Even I started to share it on social media, maybe in 2020,
Mhm.
and it just seemed unfathomable that these things that have been a part of our lives and have become extensions of us. Like, think about the last time you went 48 hours without knowing where your phone is. But we've only actually had this kind of digital attachment for 10, 15 years in this way, that this thing that is so new could actually eventually go away, as if it has just been a relic of history. And so it's like, okay, if this can change, if this changes, what could come next? And where is your telephone in your home? Do you even have a home phone number anymore? Like, where are all these things that you thought at one point you couldn't live without?
Do you draw any lines in the sand where you do not allow AI tech into your life?
Yes, but for me, it's more, I just like to protect my mind, my mental health, my attention span, and yeah, I guess my cognitive horsepower. So I think the big line I draw is probably more on devices and social media. I find that it does kind of fragment my attention and my ability to just go into a flow state. So for me, and then my evenings. So I need to sleep well. I need to get up and get into deep work. So I usually try not to check my phone in terms of social media at all, and even email. Social media for sure past 7 p.m.
Hard
Email,
cutoff.
cut off. Can't find me, can't call
Okay.
me. Email, it's on a need to know basis that it would be after 8 p.m., but that only maybe happens once every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Otherwise, that's done. And then
What about Slack?
text, no.
Okay, good, good. And then
And
in text,
it's on do not disturb too. I have my text message do not disturb on permanently all day.
smart.
And
Wow, that's a real
weekends,
insulator. That's like a real like
uh-huh.
do not do not interrupt this flow.
Yep.
So anytime you're deciding when you want to use your phone, not it
Yep.
deciding you should pay attention to me. Here I
No
am.
notifications ever. Yeah. So when I wake up, I have no contact with the outside world. I don't check email until at least 2 hours. I sit
Nice.
down at my desk and I start working, and then I'm like, okay, is there something that I need to check? Sometimes I open that email and it is like I'm putting out fires, but to me, it's still worth it because I can focus in the morning, and then I decide, okay, do I need to be on Instagram today? Do I need to be on LinkedIn and sharing something today? And if the answer is maybe or maybe not, then I just don't do it and I just get in that
Mm.
flow state. And then other days I'm like, okay, this is where I'm sharing this content, sharing this post. But I'm just really intentional about my time. And then I don't have a TV. And so I'm just, yeah, I have these boundaries with tech, even though that's all I study and that's all I'm researching. I'm quite
Wow.
strict about it.
I'm actually I'm happy to hear that. But I'm also surprised. And I was wondering maybe like personally, like how do you not feel like you're left behind if you're not getting that constant um, dopamine hit of updates that are happening in your field? How do you how do you manage that? I'm curious for my own sake because like I'd be a little nervous to be like, oh, I'm just going to turn it off for these hours and hours, and then I wake up in the morning. There's like 15 new updates that I need to think about and talk about in meetings that I might have had an earlier, insight if I was there 5 seconds ago. So how do you approach that kind of feeling of needing to be at the forefront, which I see you at, but you manage it, so that suggests that it's doable. So how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of strike a balance. I mean, yes, with the environment that we're in, every hour there's going to be a new update to an AI model, a new capability, a company that's maybe IPO'd, and a company that has been a wrapper and failed. And so I try to, and everything in between that. And so I try to kind of draw the line in terms of, but what are the trend lines that are important? So there's something that is trending in the moment, and that you can probably find in the trending section on Twitter, or that you can probably find a bunch of kind of viral TikToks going on. And then there are trends that are more substantial and like the undercurrent of change. And those
Mhm.
aren't always as immediate. And usually aren't as immediate. So I tend to track those more than the kind of daily updates. And that doesn't mean that there is sometimes breaking news, and I'll tap into that. And it doesn't mean that I'm, underground and someone has to knock on a cave for me to come out and see the update. I am, around, and I do, in the middle of the day, my email will go off if it's something crazy. But for the most part, yeah, I have to kind of separate what is trending in this moment and what's a trend that's going to last, and that kind of narrows down the information that I need to pay attention to.
So it's almost like taking like a almost like a meta look at all the trends and then finding the average in that. You focus on that element and only on a as needed basis. There's a new current today, and you're like, okay, maybe I'll care about that, but you'd rather care more about the kind of the bigger picture.
The bigger structural change that's happening, because, for example, if you take AI generated video, there's a bunch of new players stepping into the field. Progress is moving really quickly. It's really impressive. It's fun to watch. But if a new company steps on the scene, or capabilities change from being able to have 5 seconds of video generation to 10 to 15, we already saw where that trend line is going. We know that video generation from AI is going to eventually hit the 10, 15, 20 minute. We know what that disruption could look like. So I don't necessarily need to see every new startup that's stepping into the game each week. I can understand this is where things are going. Overall, this is the pace that things are moving at, and who are the big players driving it forward. And that's enough versus like the kind of every 48-hour volatility.
God, I wish that was like a newsletter. Enough. It was
This is
just
enough.
enough. Nothing else. Just enough.
I mean, that could be your AI in the future, right? You could have your AI assistant and just filter me the top 9 stories or breakthroughs or important trends that have implications for the work I do or for the wider world. And everything else, shut it. It's a lot of power you're going to give an AI system, but I mean, it's that, or, the reality that we're in right now is also information overload. And then you end up surface level knowing everything, on a deep level knowing nothing.
So confession, I actually do have an AI that does that for me. I found a way to get the tasks feature in ChatGPT tasks to do that kind of search for me, at research for me every day, and then it emails me a formal report. And I had it trained on what I consider escalatable. So like it scores the information based off of kind of like a rubric that I've made of what I think is worth me talking about, what's lower priority, what's like rare, what's I don't care about at all. And so it scours the news for my niche or field of interest. Then it compares it to a rubric of what I would like to escalate. And if it passes above an 85% on this little score I made, it then drafts for me a rough script on what in my own language, that might be how I would want to communicate this. And then I read it in the morning
Incredible.
and decide, or okay, that's great.
So
So
you
I
have
do
your
have
personal
that.
AI press briefer,
Yeah,
which is, yeah, and that's the
with
way of the
tasks.
future. I
That's
think we're
just
all going to
built-in
have,
tasks,
yeah, yeah, that's incredible.
and I
That's,
can't
yeah, that's
code.
where we're headed.
I didn't need to code, like, just kinda talked over and over and then asked it, "What is the best way to do this outcome?" And then it's like, "This is how you would structure." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know what a JSON formatting would be. Okay, let's use that." And, like, it started coming up with a structure. It's a mega prompt that it listens to every morning, and because it uses, the web search, it suddenly
Hmm.
becomes my, press briefing. I think I have, like, maybe, like, 35 or 38 like AI agents that I have do stuff for me every like in intervals, and I just kind of get pinged with their work and I kind of approve it or deny it right now.
What's been the most helpful one?
One is one that's a similar system that filters out clients for me. So it interviews them, and if they And based on how they do, it scores them for relevance to me. And then if it's above a certain score, then I'll get emailed. If it doesn't, I won't even know that this happened.
So good. What an amazing filter.
It's very helpful. And also, they have to include things like budget. I also force them to choose within the things that I actually want to serve, the things I actually want to provide. If they choose something that's outside of that and like in the other category, it automatically like really hurts the score because then that's already something I don't probably want to do. So if they're asking for that, that's like a major ding. And I update this chart every month because I change my
Hmm.
standards every month of what I'm looking for. And so as long as I do it once a month, this thing kind of filters in clients and vets them for me, and then books Calendly. It can even do like book the meeting if it's above that score. So then I
So,
see a calendar event on a random Tuesday, and I'm like, wow, damn, they got through my system. I'm going to take that meeting.
and has there ever been a time when it didn't pan out well, or that
They've
you're
all
like,
been really
this
good
meeting
clients. They've been
so good?
they've been the clients that I would have liked to work with every time so far. And it's like, I was thinking of hiring multiple assistants and then I built this thing and I'm like, this is kind of what I wanted my assistant to do if it was a human.
And picture that kind of throughout the world or throughout society more broadly, and just how much more productive you become, how much more streamlined. I can also actually see a world, because I think we're so oversaturated with so many things, so many algorithms, so many notifications, so much information, that we go extreme to the other side. So yes, only buzz me if this is a meeting that I need to take. Don't want to be swamped in dating apps. I don't want to be swamped in information, that we go so to the other side, which could actually be amazing in a way, that we kind of bounce, but we're still digitally connected, but not oversaturated. And we just have these really integrity driven filters on who can reach us and when and why. And I think that's actually something I'm really looking forward to.
Do you use the focus modes with your devices?
Yeah,
Do you use
I
the
do.
geolocation based ones?
Sometimes when I'm traveling, it's my device is more often on focus mode than not. And I'm actually really
Mm,
curious. I would love to get the numbers from Apple or Google on how focus mode usage has increased over the last couple years. And I bet you those numbers looked like, I don't know, maybe 10% of the population a couple years ago. And maybe that's over 50% now are on
wow.
do not disturb a significant portion of the day. I know a lot of my friends are. I have to text them, I am calling you, please pick up or call me back, because I know you're on do not disturb, and that's a lot of us. So I would be so curious to see how many more people now we start to understand the fence we need to put around our time
I mean, I finally created multiple phone numbers for myself.
to do that.
Yeah, actually, if you have an iPhone, you can have multiple phone numbers on one device now. Two. You can have
I
two.
usually just give fake phone numbers too.
That works
Like
too.
in terms of when you need to sign up for things, and I'm like, you don't need my number, my address, my cousin, and my dog's name for dry cleaning. Like, you don't need all of this.
Yeah, because you never know. Actually, no, you know because you research this. You know what they do with that data.
Oh
It
yeah.
goes into some pretty weird areas of identity and data distortion. So, question on you on this area of like, how do you personally navigate being both a futurist and a Black woman in conversations that are often dominated just by tech elites?
Yeah, I mean, and that conversation has also evolved in the last couple of years. I think, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it. One area or one kind of way in here is being able to spot big blind spots that boardrooms and entire business strategies missed because they didn't necessarily have a room with varying perspectives on experience, on history, understanding just how different people and histories are going to show up in data sets. And when you point out those gaps, and you can point them out in many ways. You can point them out from the angle of ethics, inclusivity, but you can also point them out from the angle of profit and revenue that you left on the table. I mean, like this blind spot of not recognizing, oh, we are missing an entire demographic, or our product is not going to work for an entire market segment was going to leave X amount of dollars on the table just by doing that. And our competitor was going to come in and take that opportunity. So there are many different ways of how you can address what it means for products to not work properly for people to be categorically and structurally left out of data sets. So there are many different ways that I tone the conversation based on who I'm speaking to, but they get to the same point. Often most technologies that I speak about uniquely don't work for people that look like me. And so, I'm very familiar with being on that side of things. And the data is there now too. I mean, 5-6 years ago, even bringing up these topics, people were kind of wishy-washy, and AI was seen as neutral and math was seen as objective. And now the results you can start to see as the applications come out, heartbeat monitors and things that don't work for people of different skin tones, women being categorically left out of science experiments, and then AI flagging symptoms for a female heart attack as abnormal when it's just, what females look like when they have a heart attack or what those symptoms read.
Wow, I didn't know
So the
about that.
data and the examples are starting to come in. So you're no longer just kind of using an approximation. This is probably not going to work well. Now you can point to these examples. But yeah, the tone of even how I present that data has changed, and just based on different global environment and approaches to diversity, looking the way I do, talking about the subjects that I do. But I also find it kind of empowering because I know I can speak to the examples because I'm also part of them. And I'd say that's kind of where we're at now.
That's why I'm so happy that you're in these rooms consecutively. I see you speaking on different radio shows, TV shows, UN kind of facilities, and I'm just like, "Oh my god, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." So, like, when you're in these rooms, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you encounter when addressing bias in AI systems?
I think people, one, just don't want to see it, so that it's genuinely not there and it's just not on their radar. I think most of the time that's when it is. It's, I didn't even really think about that. Or it's this strange assumption that math is neutral and data is neutral, or that it was somebody else's area to check. So if you're HR and you're implementing a resume scanning system and you're using AI to do it, that, well, IT, if this is an issue with algorithms not flag, like that's IT over there. That's not me in HR.
No.
And so what I try to make very clear is wherever AI is being used, if it's in HR, if it's in marketing, that person kind of signing off on it has the responsibilities of the ethics that come with that technology wherever it's applied. If you use AI, you are an AI company and you have the fundamental responsibilities to consider the ethics that go with it. Same with HR, same with marketing. So making that clear, because I think people tend to defer and deflect their responsibilities. Somebody else has got it. And it's not necessarily maliciously. It's more just, I just assumed the person building the algorithm vetted it. And we hope that, but that algorithm is going to be applied in a different context. And so that's now kind of on you to understand that.
I have a fun ethics question for you then that might be weird, but I want to just get your thoughts given what you just said. A little challenge to that. Have you been in a Waymo or a fully self-driving Tesla?
I've been in a Waymo. I've been in a self-driving Tesla, not on self-driving mode.
Okay, so if you're in a Waymo, right, you're agreeing to that AI system, right? If it hits a person while you're driving, was it your responsibility because you chose to use this service and you're in the vehicle choosing to go on that path? Or is it Waymo manufacturer? Or is it the insurance company? Or is no one responsible?
Yeah, the $1 trillion trolley problem. So, right now, how I think Waymo addresses that is that they have a bunch of people still watching these cars. And most Waymos, they're autonomous, but they employ so many people that are watching where these cars go and can interject and intervene. Yeah, all the time. But what happens in the future and that is going to be an inevitable scenario where a driverless car, I mean, there have already been driverless accidents that have cost lives. And
Mhm.
where do you put that responsibility? And I think it's going to have to be accident specific. It's probably not going to make sense that it's the person in the back of the car that literally can't access the steering wheel. If somebody put something on autonomous driving mode that shouldn't have been on that mode, just because it's capable, it doesn't mean it's ready, then I'm sure that there's responsibility there. But I imagine that it's going to be, some cross between the manufacturer, whoever had designed the algorithm or the LiDAR situation, because it could be a different
Mm.
automotive builder than the actual algorithm, what that environment look, and probably insurance is going to have to sort where that responsibility falls as well, because they even cover people that make mistakes now too. So I think it's just
Right.
going to be much bigger insurance premiums and by the AI companies themselves or by the automotive manufacturers.
Oh my goodness, you just triggered a random thought. What if it's like a recall? Like an algorithm gets a recall because it knows it's faulty LiDAR. And so if you're a manufacturer who chooses to continue using that
Well, then
algorithm,
it's over. You're toast.
you kept using it and you knew there
Yeah,
was a recall.
it's
But who
over.
decides the recall? I'm conflicted there because then
I think it's kind of similar to the recalls that happen now, right? So cars are recalled all the time. I remember there was this case in Canada where it was in miles, but Canada does kilometers. So people were like ripping it. But the dashboard said they were going the speed limit. So it was just really, really confusing. Everybody was getting sabotaged. But it was so that those were recalled. And then that's on the manufacturer. So if there was
right.
an accident, and I think it would be the same. So as soon as something gets flagged, as this algorithm isn't updating properly, there's latency issues, and then the car
Mm,
isn't turning right on time, then that would be on the manufacturer or on whoever kind of designed those algorithms and what that arrangement is in the vehicle. But I think it becomes more and more, the further we get from the steering wheel and operative control, the further I think our liability gets as well from these accidents.
that's
Not
actually a
necessarily
really
the
cool.
risk, but yeah.
I like that framework because, like, you're right. If vehicles can get recalled, so this does seem like it's likely going to be on the manufacturer, and then like insurance providers will probably just kind of have a clause that says, "All right, if you're autonomous system, will you get a in-home humanoid or humanoid-ish robot in the next 10 years?"
I mean, I think eventually they're going to become very commonplace. Will they look humanoid? I think there's a lot of focus on humanoid robots, and the progress has been quite stunning. I think that there's going to be robots in many, many forms. Humanoids are going to make sense in some contexts, not in others. And in terms of in my personal home, data we have to figure that out, because right now it's literally like having now a physical spy in your home. Before it was just the vacuum, or maybe your TV gets hacked. Now the spy can go and pick stuff up. It can get the scissors. It can paint the garage. It can do all of these things. So it takes getting weird to a whole new level. So the data would have to be sorted out in the home and what it captures, because I mean, a robot is capturing sensor data, relational data, all this stuff. So that, I think I would have to feel pretty confident that I had at least enough trust in the company and in the how data is captured and stored. Um, and that I have enough usage for it. And I think, I mean, there's no shortage of things to do around the house. And I think we actually invent things for technologies to do. But
I
I
love
think
humans.
we just make stuff up. But I also think, yeah, I mean, there's people in my life that I think would really benefit from having a system that could help from a care perspective, and not a system to talk to, but a system to help physically with their needs that they're unable to do. And this is something that I'm kind of more not as vocal about publicly, but yeah, there are people in my life that they have a lot of physical challenges and different impairments and things. And having a system that can pick up things that are heavy that so many of us take for granted is something that we can do in our home. Not everybody can. And so I also see it very holistically of where these things could actually be of service. And that's where a lot of drive for technology originally comes from, right? Like even brain
Mhm.
computer interfaces. Sure, now everybody is jumping on them, but it really originally came from academia to help people with different cognitive or neurodegenerative diseases, and now they're becoming more commercial. Humanoid or robots in general are one of those things that I see the commercial use and why companies are buying for them, but I also personally see how they would help people in my family. So, yeah, it's something that I consider, and with a different kind of sensitive light.
I love hearing that, and I'm right there with you. I have some physical disabilities that are not that visible. I have a lot of chronic nerve damage on my whole left half, so I have limited use of my left
Wow.
limbs. And I've been having to use voice assistive tech for a long time just to use computers or my phone. And so now that everything's voice first, I'm like, oh my god, this is so great! Yes. And now like I can do so much more now that AI actually is like it's like becoming voice first in many ways. And I'm sitting here like, oh, what a dream. I once in 2015 purchased a brain computer interface from a company called Emotive because I used to be a
I
full
remember
time
Emotive.
animator. Oh, you remember Emotive? Did you ever
Yeah,
get one?
yeah.
The
I
little
didn't, but I remember them. Yeah.
yeah, they had like a $1,500 brain computer interface you wear on your head. It's got 5 sensors on your scalp, text, subtle, changes in electrical current and you can use that to control a computer. And I got it to try to future proof my career as an animator. I was animating full time and I had to use my left hand all the time and all the hotkeys and controls. And I had such severe nerve pain that I'm like, dang, if my whole job is doing animation in the future, I'm going to be screwed if I need to use my left hand. Let me find a way to use a computer that doesn't involve using my left half of my body. And I started using it for a little bit until I read their terms of service of what they were doing with that data and how it didn't work unless it was connected to the internet. But I'm like, I did all the training on my local machine. Why do I need the internet still on when I'm using the device? They're like, well, because we're going to store that in our cloud and then do inference on all the activities. I'm like, cool. Can I not do that? Just have the device locally? And they're like, no, no. Then we'll need to charge a lot more for it. I'm like, oh, less interesting. So I stopped and got it in 2015. Stopped in 2015. Yeah. Do you run any local large language models for safety?
I don't, but I'm really careful with what I share with them.
Sorry. Oh, wait, with the local ones.
No, in terms of the like, do I download like an open source one, you mean?
Yeah.
Not so much. No, I tend to use just the non-open source models, but I'm very careful with what I share with them, and I'm kind of quite sensitive to the names and what I redact, even though there's so much, you can re-anonymize data and all of that. But I'm very careful of what I share. But that is something that we need to solve. And I understand that open source can be a much viable way. And I think a lot of companies are going to go that way specifically because of data. But the company that can figure out a good filter
Mm.
that allows you to tap into a non-open source model in case it's better, faster, get updated faster, but not have the challenges with your data going to like 5 people in one quadrant of America is looking at a big check.
I know I've been kind of mind blown that Meta they had their llamas, right? Their llama 3 models, and they've
Mm.
been open sourcing a lot of them. And I've been loving that because then I will run their open source models on computers that I never connect to the internet and ask it questions. And when everyone's, chat account goes down because the internet's off, I still have
You're
my
still live to air.
yeah, I'm still able to do all my work.
Open
And
source is gonna, I don't know who wins or if that's even a way to, that's even how it's going to net out. But open source is so compelling for so many reasons that, yeah, I think it's going to put a lot of competitive pressure on closed models.
what are your thoughts slash concerns, hopes for superintelligence?
What are my concerns and my hopes for superintelligence? One, I mean, I think we don't even really fully know what superintelligence means. We know what it means to be humans in relation to species that don't think the way we do, and what that cognitive delta has meant for the power advantage that we have. So that is kind of the proxy that we use to think about what happens when an AI system has the cognitive capabilities compared to humans, the same way we have these cognitive powers compared to, say, bumblebees, which are intelligent and beautiful and brilliant, but we just are capable of very different things. I mean, what does that actually look like? Who is driving these systems? And there's so many questions to think about in a world of superintelligence. I mean, the healthcare and all of that, to me, those are the easiest wins. Not that healthcare is easy by any means, but applying AI to some of those problems and the wins that are going to happen, I think we're all rooting for that future. And I do think that that's a possibility that we get close to most diseases, at least the ones that we're aware of. I'm sure we'll keep doing crazy things and going to space and creating new health challenges, but it is possible in a world with these super intelligent systems that we actually could solve a lot of them. And I don't think that that's the techno optimist view. I think that's actually a pretty realistic baseline and benchmark to make. The concerns, I don't even think we have to get to super intelligence to experience some of the biggest, strangest philosophical and conceptual challenges. I mean, what happens when an AI system can explain something to us that's true about the world that we never saw and still don't understand? But it spotted it first and it understands it more than we do. And maybe parts of our lives depend on now figuring that out. I mean, just the information collapse that happens. Or one example I like to make, or how I like to phrase it, is what happens if we actually do get this right? And AI does become this reliable system that can compute at a level we can't. And it does, imagine in a year it telling us about how life started, who else is out in the universe, how to extend lifespan by 10 years. I mean, just boom, one thing after another. What does that mean for religion? What does that mean for all of these things that just either implode or explode cognitively for us? So I think, yeah, the concerns. And then, of course, there's the like, can we keep control of these systems and stuff? And there's a lot of smart people working on that. And I think that I'm glad that people are working on that. It's not necessarily something that I'm super worried about in that type of sense, but it's more, yeah, information. That is how we organize ourselves as a species. And when we might not be the smartest entity understanding the information in the world around us, that's, I don't know, a threat, an opportunity, and just a challenge that we've never experienced before.
I mean, I feel like a slime mold feels super intelligent to me, and it's not human, and it's also not totally alive in the same sense. It doesn't hit a lot of the same areas of like most living organisms, yet it can solve very complex problems, and they outsource their memory to space. They actually use physical space to store memory. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So like what is a brain to slime mold? It's the space that it inhabits. So like it kind of reminds me every day that AI has these latent spaces that they can inhabit, but like at such a phenomenal, colossal level that, I feel like it might already feel emotions that we can never actually comprehend. Kind of like if I try to explain like a Netflix series to a bumblebee, I could try. I just don't know if I have any way of describing that in any kind of language to a bee that would make any sense to it. It'd just be like, I look for pollen. I don't know what drama is. You can talk to any other human. You're like, oh, I can explain a drama. We can share that socially. Do you think that there's AIs out there that might have experience, or is that
Mm.
something that you would reserve mostly in the domain of biology? Or is
Mhm.
biology the only thing capable of experience?
Um, yeah, is there a world in which AI becomes more aware? I don't think that that's impossible. And I like to think that I'm very practical and pragmatic about how I see this. I'm not concerned that the systems we have today have awareness or are conscious. And I know that that's a different opinion than some people. That's where I net out. But I don't think that it is fundamentally impossible for AI at some point to become aware. I think it's going to probably have to be built on a slightly different architecture. But there's also a world in which biology and AI are converging. There are AI systems right now being powered by human brain cells. So that the question of consciousness and awareness, it's no longer just going to be philosophical. It could also be scientific and technical. So these are things that we are going to have to get to the bottom of and have an answer for. And different countries, different societies, different populations are going to have a different view on where to draw ethical lines. And
Boy.
that's going to have all sorts of implications, right? You might have one country that says, this is totally fine, full speed ahead. If AI powered by living biology is going to allow for more super intelligence, let's do that. And then you have a country that says, no, we never operate on actual cells and we don't do any of that. And we will choose to not have the most advanced systems. Like these are all
Hmm.
interesting, unique scenarios that we're going to face going forward. But yeah, I don't think it's impossible that AI one day becomes more aware. I don't think the current systems are, but my rule actually with AI is never say it can never do something, because every time we've said that, we've been proven wrong
That's so true.
every single time. So it's not, I don't think anyone has to worry about going home and then their computer's alive tonight. Like that's not what we're talking about, but it's not off the table for me in terms of longer term.
I'm excited to hear that. Recently was trying to like come up with a metaphor for what I think it's going to look like in the next 30 years. And I
Mm.
feel like, do you ever watch those like monster movies with like the Godzillas or King Kongs? I feel like every country is developing their own like super giant monster, and then they're all going to have different philosophical values of what they've put into that beast. And then we're like the civilians kind of just running around to survive. And there's going to be some scientists that are trying to understand the behavior of that giant beast. There's going to be other ones that are like, you know, you know, I don't know, fighting against it or becoming friends with it. Um, do you think that's a useful metaphor, or is that a distraction from, reality?
That these systems are going to eventually be like humans versus King Kong.
or that each system becomes like King Kong, Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla, Power Rangers monster, those giant monsters. Like you don't really understand. They come from outer space or from deep in the ocean. They don't operate with the same values that even the creators might have had intended for it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems in some ways like that is what it is today in some ways, and not in a scary way, but we still don't fully understand how AI works, how deep learning works, why it got to that specific answer. I mean, you ask an AI system like ChatGPT a question, it's different every time, even though you ask the same question. We don't fully know why scaling laws have been able to hold. Like there's so much that we don't understand. So if you were to extrapolate, which doesn't always work well with AI, into 10 years, and we're just to assume that these systems become more advanced and can do more,
Hmm.
and we're not keeping up with the understanding, then maybe it does seem like we don't fully get the systems that we cohabitate with, but maybe not. I think we're also making some progress on interpretability and explainability. And also, maybe these systems don't have to be exactly like us. I think we want them to understand humanity and our values and the implicit and explicit ones. But maybe, yeah, maybe it's better that we're not building something in our image. And that has been technically the point of reference, but is that even the best thing? If you look, I mean, evolution is technically the most brilliant computer we've ever seen, has made some mistakes in some ways, but look at how different all the species are and how
Wow.
stunning they are in their own way and how much they balance. I mean, there's a reason it's called an ecosystem, and there's multiple different life forms in it. So maybe, I don't know, making these systems in our image and to be exactly like us and to isn't the best direction anyway.
Wow. So you almost see a world where, we model the best algorithm for intelligence that we had up until now, which was evolution, just evolving it over time with subtle changes leading to mass diversity of intelligences, modalities, sensor frameworks. All of them are so different. You're saying there's a world where you see maybe that's the point of AI is it should lead more of an evolved curve, not a planned genetic curve.
Not necessarily that it evolves on its own, because then I think that that could also have its own chaotic things, but that it isn't, it's just different than humans. We're trying to make this thing that's literally double of us, just smarter. And maybe that's actually limiting to what these systems can become. And I also do, even within AI and sensors and robotics, think that there will be many different forms of intelligences within the sphere of silicone intelligence. And so maybe some modalities and sensor systems and architectures are best for science, and maybe others are best for understanding, being more nurturing in certain environments. I think that there will be hopefully many different approaches to what AI looks like. And then we can also have some diversity in what we think actually makes the most sense.
Excited for that world. I recently heard someone say that we taught sand how to think. What do you think of that statement as it pertains to AI?
I mean, yeah, that's basically what AI is, a bunch of fast moving electrons built on sand dunes in some ways. I mean, I think that that speaks more to us than it does to AI. I
Mm.
think that is more a testament to, and not human exceptionalism, but our ingenuity and how resourceful we are and what we're actually capable of, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But I think, yeah, building these super intelligent systems out of sand is more of a marker of who we are than what they are.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. It's like humans built like, a wheel and then they learned how to build levers. And like there's a lot of ingenuity in there. But then to go from like, I'm gonna teach sand how to think on its own and just solve problems. I don't even understand that leap.
Well, I guess it isn't a leap, right? Because all of the past inventions have built on each other. So we could only turn sand into super intelligence because somebody invented a wheel and somebody else understood fire and somebody else invented the printing press, which led to the scientific method. And so I think the history of invention is a cumulative one. But when you kind of zoom in on one in particular, it does seem like this huge leap. And then you realize, oh my goodness, all of these steps, it's like a ladder of progress.
That's a good point. Thank you for that clarity. Yeah, because you're right. It's like additive. Um,
Hmm.
and I want to be conscious on time. I know you still have like a few more minutes
A
or
few more
not.
minutes. Yeah.
Is there any is there anything that you wanted to talk about in particular that you would love to chat about in the last few minutes here?
I mean, I think we've covered it all, from consciousness to superintelligence to data and ethics. I mean, yeah, not so much. I think you've covered a big range of things, and hopefully people can. I think, yeah, the one thing that I'm passionate about people understanding is you don't have to be technical to be a part of these technical conversations. AI is one of these unique fields where your lived experience is actually uniquely qualifies you to participate because it is technology that intersects so deeply with society and culture. So for more people to kind of come to the table and know that your opinion and your voice is valid in these conversations, I think is super important. Even just, from super intelligence to all of the magnitude of this conversation, there is no one company or one genius or one person that can steer that. And we don't want that. We want the more people that get in the game and share their opinion and give feedback, positive or negative, I think the better shot we have at steering the magnitude of what's in front of us in a direction that I think works for most people.
Sinead, thank you so much for jumping on the Rethink Reality podcast. How do people best reach you or find you if they wanted to connect? Could you spell out anything if there's any names that you're going to share?
Yeah, you can find me. I write a lot on Substack. Sinead is my first name, last name Bovell. I also post on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn quite regularly. I'll be announcing some cool things at the end of the summer so people can hear me speak more regularly and not necessarily in 90-second segments. So to stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone who has questions about some of the things that I do.
Are you going to make a book anytime soon?
To be determined.
Because I would love to read it. Sinead,
Thank
thank
you.
you again, and have a wonderful day. And I'll go ahead and hit the stop button now.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.